Hey, good morning, everybody. This is CW3 Gonzalez. Good afternoon, some of y'all on the East Coast, and then further west, it's an earlier morning. So I'd like to go ahead and start this session and take this time to welcome you to today's Warrant Officer Leader Professional Development session. My name is CW3 Louis Gonzalez. I'm the Senior Tech here at 7ID G6. And on behalf of our G6 family, we'd like to thank you all for dialing in. So we offer these WOPD sessions kind of as an olive branch to all signal warrant officers. Initially, these sessions were made to be local, but given our relationships with personnel across the globe and the proliferation of MS Teams and how we use it, we decided to open up for everybody. So today's session is going to have CW5 Deshawn Bell and CW5 Fernando Perez. As far as an introduction, both of these gentlemen have taken the time to share some wisdom with all of us and their vast experience as leaders and as technicians. They've both made a huge impact on many signal warrant officers in their career and other personnel, so we're glad to have them on board. Before we start, I'm going to go over some admin notes that you see posted there. So as you can see, this discussion is not meant for CUI, so we'll try to maintain situational awareness on what we say on this thing, because it is being recorded and it will be distributed. Also, if you have cameras on your devices, if you go ahead and turn them on. Once we get to the Q&A portion, which is more around the second half of this thing, it's much better for the two chiefs to engage in that way. So go ahead and please turn your cameras on. And lastly, as moderator, I'm going to screen these comments and questions, but also use the hand-raising function. And so I will be directing those to Chief Bell and Chief Perez on a separate chat to make sure everything's nice and streamlined. If you can wait till they're done with their portion to ask these questions, that'll work. But you can also post them in the chat throughout, and then I'll go ahead and tee those up for both the gentlemen. Thank you all for your participation. And if anyone has any questions throughout this thing, you can message me privately on this thing as well. So without further ado, Chiefs, I'll go ahead and let you take it away.
Okay. All right, Chief. Thank you. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is CW5 Deshawn Bell. Certainly is an honor and a privilege to be here. I'd like to thank 7th ID for inviting us, and look forward to the dialogue and the interaction and being able to share some successes and even failures. But we're still standing, right? Over. Yeah.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon as well. Name is CW5 Fernando Perez. Also want to give a shout out to the 7th ID G6 team for putting this together. I'm looking forward to some great discussion and really an opportunity to get together, ask questions, share some of our experiences. So with that, we can go ahead and get started.
Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay.
Yeah, Chief, here's your agenda.
Okay. Next slide. Okay. So who am I? So again, CW5 Deshawn L. Bell. I'm been in the Army almost 33 years. I'm originally from Colorado Springs, born in Denver, raised in Colorado Springs. I went to Germany for, my mom married a soldier, went to Germany for high school for a couple of years, Stuttgart American High School, came back, did my senior year back in my hometown in Colorado Springs. Have a blended family. I have a blended family of 7 daughters, but I'm going to address that from the, I'll address a little bit more about that at the end. Again, I came in as a 74 Fox program analyst, went to warrant officer school after about 7 years, and been a warrant officer ever since. Again, we've had a lot of experience, a lot of challenges. What I like to do here is when we have our discussions, be open dialogue, because we want to share that we're all human beings, we all make mistakes, we all go through things, but as long as you stay focused and stay on task, and stay true to yourself, then you'll be successful. That's all I got for right now.
Hey, again, good morning, good afternoon. So who am I? I'm the Command Chief Warrant Officer for the 311 Signal Command, as well as the Senior Technical Advisor to the Commanding General, who is Brigadier General Jan C. Norris. Been at the job for about 1.5 years now, just coming up on 31 years of service. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago was my anniversary on that. Been a CW5 since 2014, about 7 years. On the personal note, I hail from Bayamon, Puerto Rico. Grew up in the Bronx, New York. Came over when I was about 5 years old. So despite being born in Puerto Rico, English is not my second language. So really come from humble beginnings. So, you know, my mom, single parent. I'm one of 4 siblings, the middle. I have an older sister, a couple of younger brothers. And we were poor growing up. So the thing about that is, you know, being exposed to so much adversity during my younger years really taught me that, you know, that you know, nothing comes easy, right? That hard work, you know, you really have to work hard to be successful. Until this day, you know, it reminds me that success comes through hard work. And I also believe that nothing is free. So, you know, I was talking to Deshawn earlier, and I said, hey, you ever got those telemarketing calls, you know, saying, hey, you just want a free trip to Vegas? Well, just to let you know, don't believe that, because nothing is free. And if someone ever calls you and says, hey, you want to, you know, you just want a free trip through life, you know, that also is not free. I mean, you really got to work hard for everything you want. You know, at CW5s, we are charged with talent management of warrant officers across the Army. And so one of my goals is to continue to mentor junior warrant officers and continue to recruit non-commissioned officers, because honestly, I'm at the twilight of my career, and see retirement in the near future. So it's really important to recruit those that are going to fall in on our seats once we get out the service. For values, I believe, no matter where you're from, you know, race, color, religion, national origin, etc., I believe treating everyone with respect. And I think that's important. So with that said, we can move on.
All right, next slide. All right, so this is just a quick snapshot of our warrant officer career. Of course, we didn't include our enlisted career because we had to go to 2 slides, maybe 3. But the big thing is I came up as a 251 Alpha, and I don't even say 255 Alpha, because by the time they converted 254 Alpha and 251 Alpha to 255 Alpha, I was already a 255 Zulu. So I came up being as a 251 Alpha, but some of the highlights I want to identify. I won't go over all the jobs. You will see that, you can look at that yourself. But the main thing I want to hit up some of the highlights. No matter what job I was in, and I share this with everybody, no matter what job I was in, I burned the midnight oil for all those assignments. And it didn't, because when you go into any job, any circumstance, you're not going to know everything. And so you have to do that self-assessment and make sure that you continue building on the areas that you're strong in, and then work on those areas that you're weak in and the things that you just don't know. And then again, burn that midnight oil. Don't punch the clock at 1700 and go home if you know that you still have things that you have to accomplish.
Like, I know I'll have to quarantine for 10 days when I get there.
Yeah, you have a hot mic.
Also, and then I'd like to highlight also, that my favorite job was being the tech director at the school. At that time, it was called the Cyber Leader College. Because again, I saw so many bright WBC, WAC students. So I would say the benefit of that is for those, I would say CW3s to CW5s, I think that we've interacted in some form or fashion during my 4 years as a tech director when you came through your WBC and WAC. And also not to mention the relationships I've built with those instructors who have gone on to do great things, you know, such as my esteemed colleague, CW5 R.B. Torbert and CW5 Aaron Tyler. So again, a great time being at the Signal School, and we'll go into more on that, but really appreciate, but again, the main thing I want you to take away on this one is you got to continue burning that midnight oil and continue doing the self-assessment and focus on those areas you're weak in and get stronger, because again, not everybody knows everything. Okay.
Roger, yeah, that's so for me, you know, the great thing about having this slide up is so you can see, you know, CW5 Bell as a 255 Alpha, you know, prior to being a Zulu, and myself as a 255 November. You know, some of the similarities that we have is, you know, progressive jobs at different echelons, right? So as we progress through the ranks, you know, I've held positions at company, battalion, brigade, corps, ASCC, and COCOMs. 3 of those positions were joint, and across AORs, right? I do have a lot of Pacific time, but again, at different echelons. In addition, if you look through the assignments, you see one in the middle, CW3, CW4. It says Information Systems Tech, and you're wondering, wait a minute, he just said he was a 255 November. Well, that goes to show you that there may be times where you're probably going to be directed to work outside of your MOS. And in fact, that job that I did as a 255 Alpha was when I was deployed to Iraq. And, you know, honestly, as a November, I couldn't even spell server. You know, I was transport, SATCOM, big terminal type of stuff. You know, ran teleports, and that was my area of expertise. In fact, I came in as a 29 Yankee, which is a satellite systems repair maintainer. So, you know, when I got thrown in as a senior warrant officer into that environment, you know, I had to adapt, right? I had to adapt, overcome, and learn servers and learn front ends and learn SQL. But so, you know, the highlight is just be prepared that, you know, in the future, you might have a job that takes you outside of your expertise, but, you know, you can't say no to the boss, right? So you got to roll with it. That's all I have. Yeah, we move on.
All right, next slide. All right, so these are some of the tips of success. And so the first one I have on there is don't confuse activity with productivity. Okay, so I'll share a story with you. So when I was in the 172nd Separate Infantry Brigade in Fort Wainwright, Alaska, I was, again, 251 Alpha, and I had a couple 250 Novembers, and we even had a 250 Bravo. It was a ComSec guy. And so, you know, we were all competing for promotion to W3. And so I got selected to W3. And one guy in particular, he did not get selected. And so he was huffing and puffing and saying, hey, man, what's your record look like? How did you get promoted and I didn't? I said, well, I did my job because, one, when we would go to the field, again, I'm an Alpha, and like what Chief Perez was saying, you know, you're asked, you're a signal warrant officer, so your commander is going to say, come to you and say, hey, you're my signal warrant officer, I need you to get this done. You can't sit there and say, well, sir, I'm an Alpha, ma'am, I'm not a November, I can't, that's not my expertise. They're going to look at you to get the job done. So I was able to get the job done being, you know, as an Alpha, but doing, you know, network stuff in order to get the job done. So my paper reflected that. Well, the guy that didn't get promoted, he says, well, I don't understand why I didn't get promoted, because I go to all the meetings I'm asked to do, I do everything the command asked me to do, and I scored 300 on my PT test. And so I asked him, I said, okay, what does that have to do? Did you get the job done? Going to meetings and sitting there taking notes and doing things, if you're not using that information to to help you build solutions for the organization. And if you're not taking that information and factoring in solutions and recommendations for your command, then you're not being productive. Again, don't confuse activity like going to meetings and just hanging out with being productive, where you're taking information to help make the organization better. Notice that, along those same lines, getting the job done equals confidence. If your command asks you to do something, if you become proficient, or if you become successful, not only do you build your self-confidence, but you also build the confidence in the organization. And then that endears you to your leadership, and then they will take care of you. Again, for instance, when I was in First Corps as a W3, again, I was a data guy, but again, just like when I was in Alaska, I was asked to do, to do November stuff. And so I had to get the job done again as a November. And this is the beauty about being a warrant officer, because I was an alpha, but I didn't know a lot. I wasn't come up as a November, but I knew to be resourceful, right? The key is be resourceful, where I reached out to my other Novembers who were smarter in that area than I was, and leaned on them for their expertise to help me be successful. And then, and again, all that, the sum of those parts is cultivating personal and professional relationships. Because in order for us all to be successful, we have to be able to lean on each other, obviously in professional situations, but also in personal circumstances. And I would touch on that, on the personal part, at the end. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Chief Perez.
Yeah, so one of the tips for success from me, and when I first put this on the slide, me and Chief Bell, we had some discussions about it, and the discussions led to me, believing, hey, I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. And when I say embrace failure as much as success, notice that I don't state rejoice in failure, right? So I can tell you, the reaction I got out of Chief Bell when I put this up is, look, to everything a warrant officer believes in, right? Because as warrant officers, we are the subject matter experts, and we believe that we don't fail. And honestly, no one goes out there to fail, right? And so, but let me tell you, at one point or another, and this might be tough to hear, is you're probably going to fail at something. And I don't mean a complete failure, right? It could be, you overpromise something, right? And you don't deliver on time. It could be, you didn't meet the commander's, intent when he put you on a project. But I can tell you, no one is perfect. I'm not perfect. No one on this group is perfect as well. So bottom line, it's gonna happen. But the thing about failure, right, is most of my greatest lessons learned came from failure. You have to understand why you failed, learn from it, share your experience with others, and make sure that it doesn't happen again. The thing about failure is that it helps you make things right, right? If you understand why you failed, and if you ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Then you can start, getting those lessons learned in and use the answers to make things right the next time so you don't do it again. So for example, if you know that you procrastinated, right, and didn't make the suspense that your boss gave you, then hey, you probably want to, some additional time on the next time around, so that doesn't happen again. Sure.
Okay. All right, next slide. I'm talking about this one. Okay. So, all right. So, key takeaways, right? So, you can see these on here. These are not anything new, but what I would like to do is share some practical experience that can help resonate, that touches some of these areas. So obviously, be deliberate, tactful, and able to defend your unbiased recommendations. And really what I'm saying is don't get, so we all learn, right? We learn from our own mistakes, and we also learn from the mistakes that we see others make. And you say, okay, well, I'm not going to do that, what he did, because I see how he or she did that and it didn't go well. So on the first one is, don't be personally wedded to a course of action. I've seen where, you go through the MD&P process, and warrant officers, our job is to give, the deep dive pros and cons of courses of action. And then we can make a recommendation. The boss will ask you, okay, what one do you recommend? Okay, you say, okay, I recommend course of action B. But boss says, okay, got it, thank you. And then you go, and then the boss goes, and he or she goes with course of action C. So the warrant officer gets upset, has his feelings hurt because the boss didn't go with course of action B. And so now his physical and emotional reactions show that he doesn't support the boss's choice, and therefore he's no longer going to support the actions. And so I've seen individuals who are wedded to a course of action, and when that course of action is not selected, then they become unsupportive of the leader's efforts. And trust me, those leaders, they see that. And so when report card time comes, and when the individual didn't get his or her write-up the way they wanted to, that leader would tell that individual it's because you were not a team player. You were a conditional team player, meaning that you will support the team when you agreed with the course of action. But when I chose, as a person that assumes risk, when I chose a different path, you didn't support it. And that's one thing we got to remind each other, is that we are advisors. We are not in charge. We're not paid to assume risk. I mean, on certain circumstances we are, but I get it. But for the general purposes, we are not paid to assume risk. We're paid to give recommendation and advice. We just got to make sure we stay focused on that and continue supporting the commander.
Hey, can we go back a slide?
I did on mine.
Yeah. No, it was miscommunication here. We moved forward and I didn't finish. So, okay, another tip for success is PME is not enough. Really, you must pursue professional, personal development outside of work, which includes, we talk about college, and we talk about, certifications like CCNA, CISSP, PMP, etc. While those certifications are not necessarily required to get promoted, the side effect of getting those things is bottom line, it makes you smarter, right? So I can tell you, when I made CW5, I didn't have my master's degree. In fact, I completed my master's degree last year. So the point I'm trying to make there is, even though I made CW5 and I'm at the top of my game, and you're probably thinking, so what's the incentive of going out there, and completing a master's degree? Well, I didn't complete the master's degree, obviously, to make CW5. I completed the master's degree to continue my personal and professional development. And I tell you what, it's paid dividends, because it just makes me a well-rounded and smarter person. And I'm able to engage with Chief Bell, who almost has a doctorate here. But again, don't expect that you're going to get everything you need out of PME to be successful in your career. So continue with getting some education and some advanced degrees outside of work. The other point I want to make is look around. Right? If you're ever in a room, look around. And if you find yourself the smartest person in the room, get out, leave. All right. So you need to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, because it forces you to step up your game. Right. It forces you to get out of your comfort zone, and build confidence. Right. And And it also allows you to hear different opinions from people who are more educated, have more experience than you, and able to share, you know, their lessons learned with you. Because sometimes you can't learn everything from a book, right? You have to engage with individuals who've already been through it to learn from it. We can move on now. Yeah, we can move on. Yeah. All right.
Hey, Chief, you have a hand raised from Mr. Lamont.
Okay, so Chief, so that's Chief Lamont. That's a very good question. And so again, you have to remind yourself that you're the advisor, and even if the three channels, like you said, the three channels, they want to force an option, and you know in your heart that it's not going to succeed, but you have to share how you feel, step away, let those leaders make those decisions. Again, they're paid. Their role is to assume the risk. So let them go down that road, because and as long as you know that you felt that you're comfortable sharing your opinion, and if they know and your opinion is noted, then that's all you can do. But at the same time, be prepared. If things really go bad, then you can take that information, take it back to the boss, and then you could do basically an azimuth check, and then see if he or she will then adjust. By and large, if things are going south very bad, and if they're a good leader, they will see that, and they won't, and they will adjust fire, and they will even thank you later. But the main point is, as long as you have given your opinion and your advice, and they've noted it, then you have to step away, because what you don't want to do, you don't want to get into a case where your boss now thinks that you can't be trusted or you're not a team player. So I know it kind of straddles that line, if that answers the question. I mean, it's tough, because I've been there as well, and I had to bite my tongue, because I knew I was going to cross over into where I could, basically come off as insubordinate. But lo and behold, when my course of action, or when things went south, then the course of action I recommended, the boss went with that course of action. He adjusted. And then he, to his credit, he came back and apologized, said, Chief, you're right. I got to do a better job of listening to you next. I said, okay, sir, hey, no problem. We're all here to be successful. Oh,
yeah, and that's a great point, and if I can add to that, we're not, as warrant officers, we're not decision makers, right? The only folks that can make decisions are commanders, where we're technical advisors. And, when I talk about lessons learned, commanders have to also learn lessons, right? So, in most cases, especially if you're working with junior officers, right? And you have more experience than they do, even then, at the end of the day, they are the decision authority, right? So all you can do is advise, and based on your experience, give the best recommendation you can, but at the end of the day, it's up to them. And if, they make the wrong decision for whatever the case may be, they'll thank you, right? And I only ask that, don't come back and say, I told you so.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's the wrong answer. Yes. Because
yes.
That's not
being a teammate.
Yeah, that's not being a teammate. And at the end of the day, that captain, that major, that lieutenant colonel,
yeah.
When you're a CW4, CW5, he'll probably be your boss still, right? He'll be an 06, he'll be a GO. And really the way you handle it, he'll appreciate it, or he'll really get on your case for it at the end of the day.
Next slide. So I kind of want to caveat what Chief Perez said, as part of the takeaways. So, being a great teammate, like he said, don't come back and say, I told you so. And don't, because you don't need spotlight rangers in organizations. It's supposed to all be teammates. But the one thing I want to touch on is I was told by one of my mentors is, remember, when you're a W1, W2, W3, you're going to be working a lot with lieutenants, captains, junior majors. Well, remember, those lieutenants, captains, junior majors, they grow up to become colonels and GOs. And don't kid yourself if you think that colonels are the ones that really run the Army. And so if you have a good relationship and have a positive impression on that lieutenant, that captain, that major, that's going to pay forward. That's going to resonate with them. So then when they grow up and when things come, policies and directives are being developed and regulations that impact the warrant officer community, you need those folks in your corner to advocate for our best interests. And that's going to be due in part to the relationship that they had, and particularly that first impression of warrant officers. So just, keep that in mind. Again, that's where you got to be a great teammate.
Roger, I mean, as an example now, when I got to USARPAC back in 2010, right?
Yeah.
Lieutenant Colonel Promotable Geronimo just pinned on Major. So I've known him for quite a while, and look at him now, right?
Yeah.
The 79DG6 and still moving forward, and congratulations on his selection to 06. But the point I'm trying to make there is those junior officers that you work with early in your career, they're moving up the ranks just as you are. So be cognizant of that.
Yeah, just like, again, Colonel Geronimo, he'll be the colonel. So when he's an 06, I have no doubt that when it comes to advocating for warrant officers, he will be at the tip of the spear advocating for us loud and proud because of the benefits he has gained with his relationship with warrant officers over the years. So another thing I want to touch on is, again, lean and support your brothers and sisters and be trustworthy, pay it forward. So I'm gonna bend this into AIM process. So if you, as a warrant officer that is going through the AIMS process on the market, if you're seeking to get a job at whatever location, if you think that, let's say you're W4, if you think that the leader of that formation you're trying to go to, if you think that he or she is not going to have a discussion with the incumbent and other warrant officers that he or she has known over the years and build a relationship over the years, regardless of if that person is junior, your peer, or even senior to you, if you think that they're not having those conversations, you're kidding yourself. Trust me, you're kidding yourself, because I've seen it, and I'm sure you guys all have seen it. The decisions, when they see your name on the list, that colonel, that lieutenant colonel, that major, he's going to say, hey, Chief Perez, do you know Chief Smith? And if Chief Perez, who is the incumbent, says, sir, yes, ma'am, yes, I know Chief Smith. He and I had a bad relationship. We had a bad circumstance 2 or 3 years ago. He dressed me up. He embarrassed me in front of the formation, or whatever the case is, whatever negative situation is. That's going to resonate with that major or that lieutenant colonel or whoever that leader is for that formation. And that's going to negatively impact on you getting that job. So that's my point, is be respectful, be a great teammate, be a great colleague of the warrant officer community, because it will come back on you if you're not. Conversely, if Chief Perez is asked by a major, hey, do you know Chief Smith? And he said, yeah, he's a great guy. I used to work for him here and there. And, he's an outstanding individual. That, again, that's going to resonate. That can be the difference between you getting the job and somebody else. So please, if you don't remember anything, remember that from that, you have to build and maintain positive relationships, working relationships with. You don't have to agree on everything, of course, but don't treat each other, or make sure you treat each other with dignity and respect, because again, it can come back on you.
Yeah, and if I can add to this, and this is something that Chief Bell, and we talked about not too long ago, is whatever forum you're in a meeting, in an online forum like this, out there, outside of work, having a couple of, drinks with your buddies or your bosses. Every day, every minute is an interview, right? You are constantly being watched and observed on how you behave, if you will. And so, one of the things is, I may not know you personally, but if you've done great things, or on the flip side, if you haven't done so much of a great thing and got in trouble, I know of you. Because at the end of the day, senior warrant officers and warrant officers in general, we, believe it or not, CW5s, we actually talk to each other. We share, we see those junior warrant officers that are going to be shining stars in the future. And we really reach out to them and mentor them, and ensure, that they're taken care of as well as all the others. But just remember that every day you wear the uniform, it's just one continuous interview.
Yeah, like we said, you're on audition.
There you go.
You are on audition every time you walk out that door, and folks are watching you, and they talk to the folks who ask them about you. All right, so we have a question.
Mr. Lamont has his Rand Hayes.
Okay.
I don't know if you see it.
Yeah, bring them up.
Bring the question. What's the question?
Yeah, we can start questions now, actually. Yeah.
It was the advocation for the purpose of the RSF senior warrant.
So that was a little bit behind, but so I was actually raising my hand for what Chief Bell said. So Chief Bell, you and I have had some negative interactions back when I was a brand new W1. Would you advocate that taking to heart the mentorship of your senior warrants when you screw up and improving yourself is a good thing?
Repeat that again.
So would you advocate that if you messed up when you were a junior and you took the mentorship of those above you and improved yourself, would that be a positive mark or a negative mark?
No, absolutely positive mark. Because, okay, well, so Chief, yeah, so you're right. We had some, it didn't go so well for you when we had our interaction before. But, I forgot about it at the time it happened. And what I mean is that, we as senior folks, if we're going to be your mentor, we're not going to hold a grudge. We're not going to hold it against you. We all make mistakes. Because trust me, Chief, I got it. I'm a CW5 now, but when I was a W1, I got scuffed up plenty of times when I was at Fort Bragg by my CW3. He told me, and I'm telling you, this resonated. He said, Chief, you are exercising poor leadership in some of the decisions that you make. Okay, I'm a W1, right? And I'm just being honest with you, and that stuck with me. But then I tell you what, afterwards, when I made W5, that gentleman who's now a retired W4, he's one of the first persons to congratulate me and at the same time tell me that he knew that I would be successful. The point is that we could scuff each other up, right? But then that becomes a positive, because as long as you grow and learn from it, then you're okay. So no, that is a positive, because again, that's a whole point about mentorship, and that's why you have senior warrants that need to be reaching out and having those frank conversations with the junior warrants. And I hold to that. So again, I do remember our interaction, but at the same time, you're successful now. I haven't heard anything negative. So, but you get my point.
Well, so Chief, I still remember our interaction, and I've tried to be successful.
Yep.
I've tried to do my best every day.
Yep. Absolutely. And you're doing just great. And again, this is, but I appreciate you bringing that up, because again, this is supposed to be that open, frank conversation. And again, thank you for bringing it up, because also it gives opportunity. When I was in your seat as a W, at the time of W1, so I got scuffed up plenty of times. So, but again, it happens. But the person who scuffed me up at the same time, he followed up with corrective action. This is what you need to do. This is what you should think about. Think about things differently. So it's all a growing process.
Yeah, and if I may add, that's the whole point of mentorship, right? Sometimes you may not understand why you failed at something, So us seniors, right, we're able, based on experience, because I too have gotten scuffed up really bad. Based on our experience and lessons learned, we're able to share that with you, and we're able to help you through that process to understand, hey, this is where you probably did something wrong, and help you understand the why behind that, and basically help you improve and learn from that. So looking at the chat here, I see that Link.
Yeah, Link McCoy. I see Link McCoy and Aaron Tyler. So go ahead, Link. You're senior. You're the senior W5.
Hey, thanks, gentlemen, for letting me chime in. To kind of chime in on what you just said, what I've seen throughout the force, just by visiting and just air hustling different conversations, when a junior warrant officer gets into a disagreement of opinion with a senior warrant officer, yes, they tend to take it personal and say, well, CW5 Bell doesn't like me, or CW5 McCoy doesn't like me, or CW5 Perez doesn't like me. One thing that I'd like to put to challenge each one of you with is put aside that the senior warrant officers don't like you, because when you really look at it across the board, there's only 30, 32, 33 CW5s in the signal arena. And and the active one, and it's not a fact that we don't like anyone. It's more the fact that we want you to make sure that you not only challenge yourself, but challenge us and be open to disagreements. Because again, if you cannot be open to disagreements between warrant officers, you're going to have a challenge being open to disagreements when you talk to an 06, a lieutenant colonel, or even a GO. But again, you need to learn how to grow from that, and not only grow from it, but also say, hey, Chief, I kind of disagree with what you said, but also come up with substantial information on why you disagree and how you can do things better. Because as they mentioned, it helps both of you grow. So I would definitely challenge, if any of you have heard or even talked to any of your colleagues and heard them say, well, I don't really reach out to CW5 McCoy because, we had a bad altercation and he don't really like me too much. It has nothing to do with that, because at the end of the day, we're trying to groom all of the warrant officers to essentially be our replacement, because we got to move on at some point. I mean, not trying to get y'all to try to kill us off. Like they say, the only way to become a CW5 is to kill one off. Not to that extent, but we do have to move on so you can replace us. Over.
Okay, thanks. Hey, so we're gonna touch on some more of these areas, and then we'll come back to the Q&A. Chief Tyler will be the one that we'll hit before we get to the end.
Yeah. Hey, so my first key takeaway up there: work hard, and everything else will take care of itself. I can't tell you how many times, a warrant officer, junior warrant officer, has come up to me and say, "Hey, Chief, I really need this top block. What do I need to do to get it?" Right, and hunting for that top block, right? And so first of all, I don't have any influence on that, right? That's between that warrant, his raider, and his senior raider, right? But what I do advise him, and what I do tell that junior warrant is, look, if you come to work, right, every day and you work hard, right? I mean, forget about the top block and all that. If you come to work and you do your job and you excel, and you meet the commander's intent, and you meet mission, everything else will take care of itself. Doesn't mean you're going to get the top block, right? Because at the end of the day, we're a small population, right? And so sometimes you can be a top performer and still, not get there. So bottom line, don't worry about that. Work hard. Everything else will take care of itself. I can tell you, if you look at my file, before CW5, right? But CW5, right? We don't get blocked. But before CW5, not all my OERs were top blocks. It was, we call it a heartbeat, right? And in some cases, that heartbeat, almost stopped, right? It's because it's nothing on me, right? It's the raider profile, the senior raider profile, and it's just not available to give. So again, work hard and don't worry about the other stuff.
Okay, yeah, so bullet number 4, right? Maintain proper professionalism, custom, and courtesy. So I'm going to share a story with you, and then I want to address something that I've always held near and dear. So I was at Fort, or JBLM, Fort Lewis at the time. Our commanding general at the time, I won't share the name because this was what I heard him say was, I guess, meant to be in a close confines, but I happened to be in earshot. So had a W1 run up to a W5 and addressed him by his first name. Now, I know it's always been a debate amongst the warrant officer community of being on that first name basis because, you know, we say that we have our own, you know, own cohort with our own culture, you know, and own history. But I would challenge you, when a lieutenant general sees a W1 run up on a W5 and call him by his first name, and then that W5 and that W1 are going back and forth in interaction when they were on the first name basis, that lieutenant general said, I wonder when the warrant officers are going to join the Army. Now, again, it's not up for debate, right? I'm just telling you what he said. But at the end of the day, you have to take that to heart because, again, if a senior officer kind of implies that we as warrant officer are not being professional, then that's just not a good look for us overall. And so to follow that up was the commander or the other officer that he was talking to said, yeah, because a lieutenant is not going to run up to a major lieutenant colonel and address him by the first name basis. Now, again, I got it. It's always been a debate amongst the warrant officer community. But the fact of the matter is, when you have senior leaders looking at us and implying that we're not professional, that is something that we always have to fight against. And so what I say is maintain professionalism. There is a rank structure. And again, this is one of the things I pushed when I was a tech director down there at the signal school. You got to maintain your professionalism. That's something I pressed upon the instructors. And of course, you know, they press it upon the students. And the one thing I like to, and the last part of that is that I feel, again, this is how Deshawn Bell feels. We're all, and if you draw like a Venn diagram, right, you'll see that we're all soldiers. And then for us, as a cohort, we're officers. Then you're the technicians. Now, a lot of one officer would know I'm a technician first. No, you're a soldier first, then you're an officer, and then you're a technician. But the fact that you're a technician, that's what sets you apart and makes you unique in what you bring to the Army. But just don't forget that you're a soldier first. Okay, and to Chief Lamont's point, that was one of the things I stressed to him, and as well as the other young W1s that I interacted with.
You know, and I, you know, I mean, you know, just following up what Chief Bell said, you know, it's basic customs and courtesy, right? Honestly, in my 31 years of service, 20 plus as a warrant officer, I have never seen a junior officer address a senior officer by their first name. I've seen it within the warrant officer cohort, but I have never seen it amongst the O series officers. So that's you know, that's telling. And you know, and they look at us and, you know, and they wonder, you know, hey, are we being as professional as we should be and we must be? You know, another thing is you know, there's more than just work, right? There's other things that are demanded of us, right? And you got the work, you got the workplace, and then you have other things, right, that are implied. And I'm talking about social functions, right? Hail and farewells, signal balls. I'm talking about PT, right? Things that, you know, we must do. I can't tell you how many times, you know, I've heard officers on the sidelines, you know, saying, hey, where's you know, at PT saying, hey, where's Chief so-and-so? You know, and the other officer would comment something like, you know, Chief doesn't do PT. Mm-hmm. Well, we know that's not true, right? You know, because if we didn't do PT and we were out of shape, we would get, you know, obviously booted out. But just keep that in mind that, you know, they're watching us, they're keeping an eye on us, and you know, they're looking for those instances where we might not be as professional as we should be.
Okay, so I can stay. I adjusted my calendar as the quiz came in. So to answer the question, I can stay beyond 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, because you know, I like this dialogue.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
I'm good.
Chief, you have a hand raised by Mr. Tyler.
Yeah. So we got. Yeah. Okay. So well, can we do this? So we got some time. So I want to go to did we go to the next slide? This one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide, and it's really the last slide. And for some of my colleagues like Chief Torvald and Chief Oliver, the folks that have been through the school, you know, Chief Torvald and Chief Tyler, they've seen this cartoon before. So really, what this depicts, right, and this is the part that we want to close on. So we've done a lot of talking, we've given a lot of advice. But really, it comes down to this diagram, okay? Let's say, don't be this guy. If we as signal leaders don't know the mission and don't know the process and the planning that goes on with the the warfighter, the combat arms folks, if we're not integrated in that, then we're not going to be invited to the table. Now you can see the signal guy, he's not invited to the table. He has to look in with the binoculars because why would he get an invite if he's not bringing something to the table? Well, in order to bring something to the table, you got to understand what the mission is. Again, so it goes back to everything that Chief Perez and I said, you know, being professional, being present, you know, being engaged, being a great teammate. Again, it's not just being a great teammate amongst the signal warrant officer or the signal community. You have to be that great teammate across, you know, your organization.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, you know, warfighters, they don't understand our geek talk, right?
Yep.
They don't want to know about OSPF. You know, they don't want to know about SQL and about service accounts and why their email isn't working. They want to know how Signal impacts their operations or is going to support their operation. Right, so again, if we don't know if we're not involved in the mission planning and we're that guy that's looking from the outside in and not part of that team, there's no way we're going to be able to develop our signal plan. And you know, we know it as the signal annex, right, to support that mission or operation. So again, you know, we have to have a seat at the table, and we have to be able to express, you know, our relevancy in a way that they understand, because if we don't, we become irrelevant in their eyes.
Yep. And so no need to go back to the slide, but again, that's our last bullet on key takeaways. Advise and recommend in an operational context that non-signal leaders understand. The gentleman with the binoculars, he's not able to do that. He'll come in there like Chief Perez said with the geek speak and all this other stuff. The minute, and you all know, the minute you're speaking to somebody, a leader, if he or she does not understand what you're saying, then they're going to immediately tune you out, and the answer is going to be no. So with that, go to the next slide.
There you
go. So don't be that guy. All right. You got anything else?
No, I mean, let's.
Okay, so Chief Tyler's question, can you repeat Chief Tyler's question and we'll go in that order?
I had my hand raised. So aloha, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for setting this up. And I wanted to swing back to the mentorship piece. And I would say a lot of times us as mentees, we have to recognize that your mentor may not always tell you something that you may like. So that comes to the fact of say, well, hey, you need to have this assignment, or hey, you need to have this top block. As mentees, we need to accept that your mentor may not always tell you something that you like, but it may be telling you something that's best for you in your career. So it may be an assignment. It may be something that you may have your heart set on, but your mentor, if you're in that position to be that positive mentor, you are responsible to share with that person. I'm not always going to tell you what you want to hear. So as mentees and mentors, I think we all need to have that understanding when you're in that position to provide that unvarnished truth to that officer so to ensure that they're properly prepared for their next job, their next position, whatever that may be. And as a mentee, just be willing to accept that from your mentor because they have your best interests at hand. So I just wanted to share that.
Yep. Thanks, Chief. That's a good point. The main thing is, like you said, they're not going to want to hear what you got to tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great point. And from personal experience, when I was a junior warrant officer, I had the job of my life, right? I was at Buckner, Teleport OIC, my area of expertise, and I get a call from my branch manager at the time, and the branch manager said to me, "Hey, Chief, we're going to pull you out early from Buckner, and we're going to send you to Fort Knox, Kentucky, to the 3rd Sustainment Command. And by the way, they're getting ready to deploy in about 8 weeks to Iraq for 15 months. And, you can imagine, my expression, right? I say, "Oh, no," right? But I can tell you that move, that experience, probably the best, of my career, because that was the time when I got out of my comfort zone, right, and did that 255 Alpha job, right, which opened up, just more possibilities for me and helped me grow as a warrant officer.
Okay. Chief Dahlstrom.
Chief, I have just a general set of questions. So, coming from originally my straight out of basic course, I went to 101st and deployed as an actual server tech to Northern Iraq, and we got to actually play tactical communications. And now I'm over in the fire center running the G6 as the only military. But one thing that I've seen as a habitual problem across the Army that I don't know how to really emphasize beyond, getting at and really kind of trying to shake the trees, and kind of something that I want to know as a W5, the levels of influence that y'all have on the situation. Why is it that with signal equipment becoming such a prevalent piece of the battlefield, why is it not an EIB task? Why is it not taught in BOLIC? Why is it that whenever I get that new lieutenant that's going to take over a platoon, why is it that I have to explain to them how ink sets work? Why do I have to explain to them the most basics of things whenever, in all reality, signal is becoming less and less of just that talking blinky box and more of a weapon system? So why is it not being treated as the same?
So, okay, so I would say, so the first thing you kind of alluded to is the training that they get in BOLIC and SCCC. So I would say that you'd have to bring that up, share that information through your 6 channel, and that information has to be relayed back to the signal school. I don't know if Chief Oliver is on, but that'd be something that you'd have to address with Chief Oliver, who's the tech director at the signal school, and then she can pass that information. Because if it's a prevailing concern, then that information needs to be passed to her, but it needs to be passed to her from some folks that are actually dealing with it on a day-to-day basis and dealing with the frustrations, such as yourself. So I say that's the first one. But the second part is, at this point, it is what it is. So you're right, it shouldn't be that way, but the realities is that that's the way it is. So do things in parallel, right? Push that concern to the signal school through your leadership chain, but also at the same time, embrace it as it is what it is. And then you take the opportunity to coach, train, and mentor those folks coming out of SCCC or their BOLIC and SCCC. Because then again, Chief, like I said before, you having an impact on that lieutenant and that young captain, even though you're trained on something that they should probably know, the fact that you're having that positive impact on him or her by giving them that training, again, that resonates. So when they become a Lieutenant Colonel promotable Geronimo, they're going to have fond memories of you and what you did for that individual when they were a lieutenant, despite your own personal knowledge that technically it shouldn't be you doing it. But then again, we as warrant officers, that's our job to coach, mentor, and train.
Right, and I completely agree with all of that. And every single time that it's come up, it's always been, let me show you why is this radio in your tough box? Oh, no one showed you how to use it. Do you know what the soldier waveform is? Do you know how it can interact with, the overall COP? And but it seems like one of those things that, since it's such a grand battlefield multiplier, that there should be some at least broad, if not, I don't need anybody in the weeds, obviously, that's why we exist, but there should be some sort of command, overview slides before they take these positions. Because it's just crazy to me that whenever I had 3 different brigade commanders, every single time I had to explain to them, why we're relevant. Beyond
So,
just,
Chief,
go ahead.
if I can interject. So
Please do. Yes, please do.
So sometimes it's not you talking to that NCO or that platoon sergeant or lieutenant. Sometimes it's you talking to that company commander and explaining you are failing at this point. Now, what do you need from me to make you successful, to make the overall mission successful?
Yes.
Roger, and I agree. That's just one of those prevailing frustrations that I've had over the years. It's such an important, we invest so much money, we invest so much time, and then be it the Win-T Inc. 2 that just gets put off to the side because they don't want to take the time to take it to the truck. It's just one of those, we spend so much time, effort, and energy on the signal field and career to make these systems, but it's like the only branch that cares is signal. And that's, they care more about their radios, but it's just one of those, as seniors, I can't be the only person at my level that has identified it. So I'll just do what you said. Try to send it up.
So I'm sorry, it's Chief Long again. Let me interject again. So have you engaged your maintenance techs? Have you engaged your 25 uniforms? Have you engaged, again, there is a plethora of warrants in your brigade that you can engage to, A, show the relevancy of these comm systems. B, show that if they're not maintained in accordance with, and again, I learned a lot about the Army maintenance system just in trying to figure out how to make a truck radio work.
See,
by engaging my 915s and 913s.
Yeah, so that goes back to my point. Again, you have to know your environment. Again, another thing with warrant officers, though, our job, nothing's perfect, right? So there's always going to be, there's a flaw in the system. There always is. But it's our job as warrant officers to survey the situation, learn the formation, assess your circumstances, and find out where those gaps are and do what we can do to the best of our abilities to fill those gaps.
So, sorry, the last thing I'll say about it is, so like I said, right now, I'm the G6 over at the Fire Center at SIL. We teach, obviously, as you know, artillery and air defense. We used to teach cyber. Name the fields that have any kind of relevant knowledge beyond how to use an ASIP.
Okay.
They're not here. And that's the problem that I'm trying to say. Outside of signal branch, it doesn't matter. But everybody sure heck knows how to fire a 240 because it's a primary weapon system. So that's my concern, is that as the Grand Army, that piece has not been adapted.
Okay.
Hey, Chief, this is Chief Gonzalez. I kind of want to get Big Chiefs back on track. I'm talking to Chief Dahlstrom. These are all great points and questions, but we're going to go ahead and move on to let someone else ask some questions, and then we'll get with you offline.
Okay, Chief Studer.
He's not coming on, Mr. Chief Clausius is next.
Okay.
Hey, good afternoon. Nice to meet you, Chiefs. Thank you, sirs. Appreciate you being here. This is a question for the crowd. And this is what I ran across. It kind of alludes back to what the CW2 was talking about. What I have found out as being a warrant, and I actually got deployed. I'm sure a lot of you the same thing. What I found about working with officers and understanding where I would consider the place of where we stand as warrants, sometimes it's going to change wherever we go. Sometimes we're going to sit in a position that we're going to be listened to. Sometimes we're not. And like somebody that put out, basically know your surroundings and know who you're talking to. But I'll also share with you that sometimes it takes you to stand up and to start making it known to the officers around you, not just your warrants, but you have to share what you know and what your expertise is. It's not being arrogant, it's being confident, because sometimes as we walk through these lanes and we go with signal warrants, sometimes they don't know what we do and what we can help them with. The goal is to be able to show them, and guess what? Sometimes they'll ignore it, but sometimes they won't. And what I'm going to ask the CW5s on, have you run across this in your life, and what have you guys done to see that as a success in working forward? And it's like in reference to just being a warrant, and then also in a signal capacity. Over.
Yeah, it is Chief Perez. So I got to tell you, you know, junior officers, right? O-series officers, just like junior warrants, they're trying to find their place. And, you know, I can tell you, you know, a couple of years ago, you know, I was at a CIO-G6 senior leader seminar. And in that seminar were all the CW5s, the G6s across the Army, right? And the CIO G6 himself. And, you know, one of the guest speakers was a GO, warfighter, and soon to be the next USARPAC commander, right? General Flynn, for those that don't know. And, you know, and he stood up in front of the audience, and we're all signaleers, right? And he basically stood up there and said, signal officers are weak. And, you know, we all kind of looked at each other around the room and said, wow. And what he was trying to say is look, and he's speaking about junior officers, right? And he's basically saying, look, I don't need junior officers running around the TOC trying to configure my email. I don't need junior officers running around the TOC loading ComSec in my radios. I need junior officers integrating systems into the operations. Leave that technical stuff, right? That operating this, operating that to the NCOs, the soldiers, and let the warrants figure out how to make things work, right? If it comes to that, right? But for junior officers, all I need them to do, signal officers, all I need them to do is understand the big picture, the broad picture, how to integrate signal into my operations.
Okay. Good point, Chief. Hey, Chief Villarreal, you're up.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, one and all. Thank you very much for putting this together. I just wanted to get an update with regards to what are you looking for letters of recommendations for up-and-coming E6s or E5s that are interested in joining the Warrant Officer Corps. Over.
Man, good question. So, first of all, I would tell you, I've sat on 2 accessions boards, and I'd also like, but I'm a little dated, so I would like Chief Tyler, if he's on, I would ask him to chime in after I make my comment. But
I got some too for you.
Okay, so yeah, so I got those guys. But I would tell you, when I was on the board, again, this is Deshawn Bell's perspective, and this was also the perspective of the rest of the panel members on the 2 accession board I sat on. They didn't care about a letter from a GO. They didn't care about the letter from some 06. Because they know that they weren't working for that GO. Unless they were that GO's commo team chief or NCO, we knew that they weren't actually working for them. They were just chasing a letter of recommendation to try to get one up on their competitors. But we were smart enough to know that you're not, unless you were working for that general officer, they don't know you. So the letters that are most important are coming from that CW3, that CW4. I'd even argue to a less extent a W5, because a W3 most likely is working more closely with that NCO. So the key thing when the letter is from a W3 or W4 that states the individual's technical and leadership capabilities. Because remember, we're trying to become technical leaders. We're not just technicians, as you've heard, Chief Robinson's and the other senior warrants that have spoken on this on several occasions. We're trying to go to be technical leaders. So make sure that letter speaks on the technical and leadership abilities. And I'd ask Chief Tyler to jump in, or Chief Adams. Well, I asked Chief Tyler first.
Yeah, go ahead, Chief Tyler.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, real quick, I would definitely say Chief Bell's point are correct, but I would also say in those LORs that you write for those W3s and up, make sure the letters are personal. Talking to specifically of your interaction with that NCO and not some blanket, copy and paste type thing, because the board members look at that from the senior warrant as well as understanding how connected you were with that NCO. So I know Chief Adams definitely have deeper insight.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So again, I obviously scrub packets for a living here at Proponent, and I will tell you one of the things that I look at the most on a packet, and I say again, the most is those NCOERs, right? Because obviously that tells the most about an individual, right? I mean, they can write anything and everything they want on a resume, but really that's just what they think of themselves. That's them selling themselves, right? We've all done resumes before. There's really no proof. I mean, it shows good writing. It shows they take time and effort to put into a product. But ultimately, I look at the NCOERs because that's what somebody else is basically acknowledging that soldier as a leader, a technical expert. So again, sometimes I see these write-ups from senior leaders with oh, he's good, promote with peers, or he's qualified. Not even highly qualified, just qualified. Qualified. I'm like, wow. How is this individual going to be a good warrant officer if he's just a qualified NCO? So again, I really want to reiterate NCOERs. I mean, definitely look at them. If you read them and you're like, how did this senior raider basically won't even tell the individual he's number 1 of 5 or 2 of 5. He just says, oh, he's a top 25% NCO that I've served with. I mean, it doesn't really say too much, right? So if a leader does not want to put down and number 1 of 5, 2 of 5, that says that basically he's trying to be nice, right? So again, look at those NCOERs. Also, look at the recruiting website, right? I mean, there's prereqs on there. I get calls all the time. Oh, can this soldier become a warrant without any experience, and it's like, well, come on, just look at the website. Everything is on the website. Now, we are looking at, between myself and Chief Hahn, we are looking at changing some of the prereqs in the future. And that's why I always say, look on there first before you even write a letter of recommendation. Also, don't feel obligated to write a letter of recommendation. If that soldier is not up to par, tell him how he can get on par and what he needs to do, and then make sure he comes back to you, right, after he meets those objectives. I won't go on too much longer because, again, I know there's other more important topics to discuss. But, again, I'm always here. Please feel free to contact me for any questions. I'm definitely here to help provide a senior warrant. If you don't have one in your formation, I get that often also. W2s, I got this high-speed guy, I can't write a letter. Can you help me find a senior? So also always contact me for those issues. That's all I have.
Okay. Thanks, Chief Adams. So let me move to Chief Andrews. What you got, sir?
Hey, good afternoon, Chief. Thank you for actually both of you for hosting this. But my questions that I have real quick, to the gentleman that was just speaking, I did not see his name. I don't know if he was on, on the phone or something like that. But can you share his name real quick before I go into my question so I can just record it?
Yeah, that's CW5 James Adams.
James Adams.
James E. Jr.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So, gentlemen, what Chief Adams just said is key. However, I have one caveat to that. The NCOERs are great. That's the pinnacle of everything moving forward here. However, I represent Compo 3. I am an AGR soldier currently at the Merc. My question is this: I'm constantly fielding questions, and I discussed this with Chief Oliver as well. I'm constantly fielding questions of soldiers who want to join the Warrant Officer Corps. However, being a weekend warrior, if you will, and you do have some on the line here with us, some of them have master's degrees on the cyber side. Some have cybersecurity degrees on the bachelor's side as well. But the NCOER for them being a weekend warrior is not too strong. I do apologize. Let me kill that real quick. Is not too strong because of that 1 week in a month that they come in and then 2 weeks in the summer. Would you say that the master's degree in conjunction with whatever they're doing in their civilian capacity would suffice for a strong recommendation coming into the cohort? And the second part, I'm going to let you guys digest that real quick. The second part is there was recent changes to the 255 Sierra field, which I believe she's no longer there, but Chief Owens had told us about when I was at Bragg. That has also changed. So would you recommend our soldiers be geared towards 170 or still with the 255 lane? I'll copy over.
Okay, so the first part, I'm going to defer that to Chief Adams. He's in a better position to answer that. I don't want to misspeak. So
yeah, like I said originally, right? Me and Chief Han, we are looking at that same thing, not just for Compos 2 and 3, but also Compo 1. Primary because really the 255 series MOSs are open to anybody and anybody that can apply. But now we look at it, right? If you don't have NCOERs, how can you really get that expertise? So we're looking at right now actually weighing that 4 year. If you have a 4 year bachelor's degree, like in a STEM, maybe in a STEM area, we're trying to identify which degrees we want to say, okay, this might qualify for 4 years. This might sacrifice those 4 years of technical experience if you have a bachelor's or a STEM degree. So we are looking at that. I mean, that's something that hopefully we'll have out soon. For the second part of your question, yes, the 255 Sierra is now open for accessions. January was the first board. I had 8 packets submitted. We picked up 8. This board coming up in May, I have 9 packets right now. So again, I definitely encourage individuals to put in packets for 255 Sierra since we are assessing, and the first basic course, official basic course, is going to be this coming January. So definitely have candidates that have a cybersecurity background. If they have it in their civilian job, make sure they have work appraisals, right? I mean, make sure they have something that says where they work at. If they have like an appraisal from their employer saying he's an outstanding, this is what he works on, definitely include that with your packet. I have a Compo 3 and a Compo 2 proponent also that looks at these packets, and they're the ones that really say, because they feel that frustration because they've been there. So again, I do have a Compo 2 and 3 proponent that looks over those packets. I really don't. I finalize the packets, but I don't, I guess, say that they're great candidates. I let them do that since they know what they're looking for.
Good copy, Chief. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Chief Andres, you're up. You on still, Chief?
Nothing heard. We go to Chief Gilly.
Nothing heard. Okay, Chief Gilly.
Hey, G Bell, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
Pretty good. I was just going to reply to what Chief Adams was saying. I was in agreement. I'm here at Fort Gordon, and I get my interviews that I do are from a lot of soldiers that are not in my formation. So I do talk with that first sergeant or that sergeant major about that soldier. I talk to that company commander and their actually battalion commander about that soldier before I even begin the writing process of even recommending that soldier to become a warrant officer. So I do look at the NCOERs, but I make sure that before I write it, I want to still get to know the individual that's looking to be assessed is the right individual to become a warrant officer. Because, some soldiers, if they don't make promotion for some reason, they think becoming a warrant officer is the next route. Because a lot of hearing that always being said that, oh, you became a warrant officer because you couldn't make this rank as an NCO. So a lot of soldiers like jumping ship that way, but I just make sure that anyone I write a letter for or recommend anyone else writing a letter for to go through that process to get to know that soldier first before recommending them for anything. That's all I have.
Thanks, Chief. Hey, okay, so we got time for one more question. Well, we're getting the hook. CW2 Buchan, you're up.
Yes, sir.
How do you say your name? How do you say your name? I don't want to mispronounce your name.
It's Buchan.
Buchan. Okay, you're up, Chief.
All right, thanks. I want to roll this back, I'm sorry, to the sessions process. One last question is, for soldiers that are clearly capable of being a warrant officer, or NCOs for sure, but they're just meeting that 3 NCO requirement, what's an acceptable type of documentation for, and signal soldiers at that, for them to include the 4th year of experience? I'm kind of questioning how we can get soldiers that absolutely should be within our ranks, but need to have that 4th technical. If they've been doing this job as an E4, as a JNN team chief operator, because that's how that unit was, etc., what's a good way to capture that in an accepted document form?
Really, I really only look at maybe 36 months, right? Because that's all that's really required is the 36 months. Now, obviously, I know that soldier was a uniform or Bravo. I know what schools he's been going through. I know what skills he's been doing because I'm a signal leader myself, right? So really, as long as he has 36 months, that's all I hold him to. I will definitely qualify them if they have 36 months. And within those 36 months, now hopefully they do have technical things and not 36 months as a recruiter or a drill sergeant, right? So again, if they have 36 months worth of documents that show they are technically qualified and also a leader, because we're not also just technical experts, but we are a leader, I definitely will qualify them. So I don't need 48, I just need 36.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief Adams. That really makes it a lot easier. I got a couple guys that fit this situation perfectly, and I want to make sure they have a good fair shake.
All right, teammates, we got the hook, so we'll just take the last few minutes we have to wrap it up. And before I give my final comments, I just want to thank you all for participating. I know it's, we're all around the world. Some places is, going into your evening time and your dinner time. So again, really, really appreciate it. So I want to share a story, or I want to share a circumstance, because the point is that, we all need to rely on each other, and particularly, your family and friends, but the warrant officer community. And I'm going to share with you because you saw at the very beginning, I told you I had 7 daughters from a blended family. Well, my oldest daughter passed away last summer. And as anybody would know, that's a tough thing for a parent to deal with, because no one expects their children to pass away before the parent. But I bring that up because my relationship with my warrant officer teammates, my close warrant officer friends that I've built and cultivated, right, over the past 30-some, or 20-some years, I was able to rely on them for comfort and support to get through that. And particularly, Chief Perez, because, he and I happen to be here together. So again, I share that story with you just because it underscores the fact that we as warrant officers, we need to have that personal and professional relationship with one another, so we can help each other out, not only on the professional side, but on the personal side when each of us are going through some things that you wouldn't wish upon anybody. Okay, so again, I share that with you. You continue cultivating relationship, taking care of each other, have that honest dialogue, and that professional relationship, the professional dialogue, the teaching or treating each other with dignity and respect, and be able to be there for one another. Okay, that's all I got.
I appreciate that. Hey, I just want to again thank the team, thank all the warrant officers for joining us here. I tell you, when I came here and Chief Bell was here as well, and we've known each other for quite a few years, it warmed my heart to be able to work with him as a teammate. We talk every single day, and we have this not only this very strong professional relationship, we have a personal relationship as well that's just as strong. I just want to leave you with one last thought, and that's that, hey, we all come from diverse backgrounds, right? And I ask that, be inclusive, share experiences amongst each other, because at the end of the day, demographic diversity is just as important as technical diversity, right? Mm-hmm. So, when I say technical diversity, you got the Alphas, you got the Sierras, you got the Novembers, got that. But the demographic part is just as important, because, a lot of the stuff that we learn outside of work with our different, where we come from, different backgrounds, we can equally learn from each other. From each other's experiences and the way we grew up. And I ask you to share that, get to know your teammates, not on a professional level, but on a personal level. Go out there, do a face-to-face with your teammates, because face-to-face is one of the easiest ways to build trust, right? The more you know about a person on a personal level, the more you're willing to trust them, on a professional level. So, again, hey, I just want to thank everyone for this opportunity. It's always a great, time to share with you guys. So appreciate that.
All right. Thank you all again. We really appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your day, your week, your month. For those who don't know, I'm transitioning to NetCom. I'm replacing Chief McCoy at NetCom this summer. And CW5 Angel Rivera is coming in to replace me. In fact, I go pick him up from the airport this afternoon. So again, look forward to the new job. Looking forward to these continued interactions whenever we can. So thank you again.
Hey, Chief, just want to say a few words. So on behalf of us here at the Mighty 7I DG6, I want to thank you both for doing this, for taking your time to put out this information. We all appreciate it immensely, and especially that blend, of your personal and your technical and tactical experiences. That means a lot to a lot of us. And also want to thank everybody for dialing in. I want to put out a friendly reminder. We have another WOPD coming up with CW5 Wells from DISA. So I'll send out that calendar invite as well. And just want to thank everybody for coming together like this, and look forward to more of these. So thank you all, and thank you, Chiefs.
Oh,
appreciate it.
Chuck.